The Doc is In is sponsored by Amada Senior Care.
Fox 56 News Chief Medical Contributor Dr. Ryan Stanton back again in studio.
He's keeping his focus on pregnancy, but now instead of talking about morning sickness, he's talking about a habit that might not be so good for the baby.
Yeah, and unfortunately it's something that we're likely going to see more and more just because of the national landscape of legalization laws and access. And so it's one that's definitely worth talking about it with the little babies out there. Women who use marijuana during pregnancy may be putting their baby's health at risk, with risk increasing as use goes up as well. An analysis of data from more than 9,000 moms-to-be from across the U.S. revealed that cannabis exposure during pregnancy is associated with an increased risk of unhealthy outcomes, especially low birth weight. Moreover, the more cannabis consumed, the higher the risk. The researchers looked at the impact of marijuana use on the combination of possible negative outcomes, including the low birth weight, preterm birth, stillbirth, and pregnancy-related high blood pressure, and found that the risk rose by nearly 30% in those who use cannabis while pregnant. The report was published earlier this week in the Journal of the American Medical Association, more commonly known as JAMA. The interesting aspect of this article is that it mentions exposure, which may suggest a potential risk as well with secondhand and environmental risk exposure. The key take-home is that any exposures during pregnancy may have an impact, and the long-term effects are still unclear. But as laws change and marijuana becomes more accessible, it's another area to consider for the safe and healthy development of the baby. So, you know, as folks get into these things in pregnancy, it's just making sure you understand that anything, medicine, drug, whatever wise, dietary, it's going to contribute to this child, to the development. And this is another thing that's showing that potentially it may negatively impact the development of the child in utero.
30% is a whopping number.
That's a pretty big number. And as things expand, and as we talked about hyperemesis gravidarum earlier, actually marijuana can actually contribute to that as well and make those symptoms worse with some gastroparesis. So there's a lot of ways that these things interact and potentially in a negative way.
All right, well, thank you, Doc. Good information to know there this morning. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
In a couple days, I guess. We'll be right back.